move into our public hearings, and the first is on Proposition 409, and City Manager Knudsen.
Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you for having me this evening. I was asked to come and present some information about Prop 409. So I'll share some information with you and encourage you to stop me throughout the presentation if you have questions or want to know a little bit more about something. Please by all means, let's make this a conversation. So on August 28th is the Prop 409 coming up very quickly now, and it's the permanent base adjustment election for Lake Havasu City. So we'll start off with a conversation, just some quick background on what is a permanent base adjustment. And essentially, it's a creation of a law that was created back in 1979, 1980, that restricts cities and towns the spending that cities and towns can have. It doesn't restrict the amount of revenues or funds that come into the city. It simply restricts the dollars that the city can spend, regardless of the dollars that come in. Since 1979, 77 out of 91 cities and towns in Arizona, about 85%. Have addressed this issue in one form or fashion. There's two ways of doing it. One is through the permanent base adjustment, which we're talking about in Lake Havasu City's case. The other one is a home rule option, which is something that some communities have elected to do, where they go back to the voters every 4 years and ask for an increase in the limitation every 4 years. There are a number of ways that it gets kind of complicated in terms of what dollars can be spent by the city, grant dollars, enterprise fund dollars, the dollars that come in for water, sewer funds, things like that. There's different credits that can take place that don't count towards the limitation. One of those things is also debt, does not count towards that. So why it's a way for the city to expend dollars that the residents want as far as providing services. It's not always the most fiscally responsible way to do it, because when the city borrows money, it's at a cost. There's dollars that have to be paid by the city to accomplish that. A question that comes up countless times with regards to the permanent base adjustment is, how does this affect my taxes or the amount of dollars that I pay into the city each year? This Prop 409, or the permanent base adjustment, has no impact whatsoever on taxes or fees. So again, this is an issue with regards to how much funds the city can spend for city services. It has nothing to do with the amount of revenues that come into the city. So a yes vote does not increase taxes. Likewise, a no vote will not decrease taxes. They remain the same. I want to talk a little bit about, in terms of like the story of what's happened over the last 40 years since the law was first instituted. Back in 1978, when Lake Havasu City was incorporated, there were 0 parks. Today we enjoy, depends on how you classify, between 15 or 17 different parks throughout the community. So obviously there was dollars that were needed to construct these parks, and many additional dollars it takes to, as you're all well aware, to maintain these parks through staff and maintenance. Endless dollars that go into these facilities for the public's enjoyment. The Aquatic Center is something that didn't exist back in 1978. Again, a nice amenity that the community appreciates today. But these are dollars that the city spends to provide these type of services. Sewer infrastructure obviously didn't exist back in 1978. Water treatment plants is something that the city has constructed since that time frame. Prior to the construction of the water treatment plant, the city had some manganese problems. So I'm not sure those that go back a few decades in Lake Havasu City, but I've been told that manganese was an issue. It's a non-toxic. It's not harmful, but it literally looked like been told like a chocolate milk substance that would come out of your faucets from time to time, would stain your clothing, things like that. So the city runs and operates a very high-tech water treatment plant to remove all those manganese issues from the water supply. So. Paved roads and stoplights. Stoplights didn't exist back in '78. Animal control is a service that our residents appreciate. Things like we take for granted as far as jail services, and then of course the city and the region protecting our most valuable asset, which is the lake itself and the lower Colorado River. A few pictures to just show the difference in timing. 1980. Lake Havasu City was just short of 16,000 population. Today we're right at or exceeding about, actually the number is probably a little closer to about 55,000 people with the census, the last figure is coming from the census. Some of the details with regards to the August 28th election. A yes vote will allow the city to adjust its base. It'll move from $4.7 million base to a $9.7 million base, and this will allow the city to spend the dollars that it already collects. So it doesn't bring additional dollars into the city. It allows the city to draft and maintain and administer a budget based on the resources that are already coming in. And then a no vote does not allow the city to adjust its base, and the city will still collect the same amount of dollars, but those dollars will literally sit in an account, and the city is not able to spend those dollars and provide services to the community. Just some pictures again to show the difference in timing over the years. In 1980, with our police department, we had 24 employees, 7 fleet, and today that number is about 100 employees, and they ran almost 44,000 calls last year. In addition to these calls was about 2,500, I believe, off the top of my head, animal control calls that come into the city every year. This is the ballot language that looks like we had some adjustments this last year. We had some adjustments to this language just last week. So this is hot off the presses in terms of the language. We'll have to have one more final review by the Auditor General at the state level. We'll be coming back and approving this language. But as you see here, the top portion of the language talks about adjusting the expenditure base for Lake Havasu City by $5 million. The yes vote will have the ability to adjust that base, and the no vote will not allow Lake Havasu City to permanently adjust its base. Some pictures with the fire department and the difference where we're at 1980 compared to today, with the 4 stations versus 6 stations. And if you look at the annual calls, to me is the most dramatic. So we about 1,400 annual calls back in 1980. And today we're about 8,500 annual calls for fire and paramedic services from the residents. Some of the many city services that some of us, rightfully so, take for granted in the city. When we get up in the morning and take a shower and flush the toilet and brush our teeth, all these things we expect to work. We have countless hours and dollars that go in to provide these services to the community. We're doing a good job when these are seamless and when they don't become an issue for the residents. But you can see here, in addition to police and fire, courts, special events, all the recreation and park programs that as a board you're well aware of, the airport, water, wastewater, transit, animal control, code enforcement, and there's many more services that the city provides. Here's some fun pictures looking at the difference between what Rotary Park looked like back in 1980 compared to today, and also with London Bridge Beach, all the great amenities that we now provide to the residents that in the past were just a space for the public to congregate and to use. Today we provide services and maintain facilities in those locations. Quick slide on here. We're trying to capture the fact that if Proposition 409 does pass, the future budgets will be based on existing resources, existing dollars. So Prop 409 does not allow additional dollars to come into the city, so we will still maintain a fiscally conservative approach to our budgets, and we'll do what we can to make sure that we're providing efficient, constant, transparent services to the residents. Madam Chairman, Chairperson, and members of the board, that concludes my presentation. There's a website address on the bottom there from the city's website,